Thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started, call the meeting to order. I was sharing with Mr. Richardson that we'd probably get better attendance if this was on the rooftop here at the building with the bar, right? So, yeah. It's so pretty outside. So pretty outside.
Next second.
See, everybody, yeah. We're already forming a motion for that. So let's go ahead and get started. If we could, to the adoption of the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda? Do we have any changes, adjustments to the agenda? No adjustments to the agenda. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
To approve.
We've got a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any public comment? No public comment tonight. All right. Moving right along. Ethics and awareness, conflict of interest reminder. Neil?
In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid conflicts of interest. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest with respect to any of the matters coming before the board today? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the particular matter involved.
Hearing none. Right, we'll move on from there. Consent agenda items. We can get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in your
Second.
first, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We're cooking right along, Mr. Drakes. The moving to item number 6, the FY 2025 UPWP, aka the budget. Mr. Cook.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, and good evening. We have reached the conclusion of the process regarding the Unified Planning Work Program. And so we are coming to you tonight for action on this item. And so we are recommending that the board approve the fiscal year 2025 Unified Planning Work Program. And as with most things that come to you, the Technical Coordinating Committee, the TCC, has reviewed this thoroughly. And at their meeting earlier this month, they unanimously recommended that the board approve the UPWP as presented. And in your agenda packet, you had several items. You had the memorandum from me that laid out a lot of the details, hopefully all the details, a spreadsheet which had all the allocations that are proposed across the organization. The listing of all the task code activities, what we plan on undertaking for the upcoming fiscal year, and then the resolution that you'll actually be adopting tonight. We're requesting that you adopt tonight. So those 4 items were in your agenda packet sent out last week. And so just real quick, I'll go through some of these slides because you've seen a lot of these before. The funding summary, this has not changed a whole lot since the beginning. A few amounts have changed as things have moved around a little bit, but nothing of no tremendous changes. We talked a little bit about this at the last meeting about the recommendation about the additional drawdown of surface transportation block grant to direct attributable funds to make up for a reduction in planning funds for this coming fiscal year based upon some bookkeeping issues, I'll call them, on the part of NCDOT through no fault of their own, by the way. And that amount will simply bring us up to the same level as what we programmed in total between the PL funds, the planning funds, and the STB GDA funds, the same amount between FY 24 and FY 25. And one of the concerns that some board members had expressed, one of the concerns was that, is this going to be a problem year in and year out? And in conversations with NCDOT, the indication was that that was not going to be an issue. They didn't expect it to be an issue, and that next year we should not be dealing with that reduction in PL funds. And so our recommendation is to increase the amount of the drawdown of STBGDA funds by $276,200. We talked about this last month. These are the allocations. These have not changed, maybe a couple of dollars here and there across the various task codes. But the bottom line remains the same, as you can see there between FY 24 and FY 25, and the amount program there is the same. Section 5303 allocations. This has not changed since January. Again, we're funding all the requests from those agencies, including support for some of our activities, with a special emphasis on complete streets activities for us in the coming fiscal year, us being CRTPO staff. Last month's meeting, you approved these three applications as a part of your action on the discretionary grants program, the TDM pilot program from Central Iowa Regional Council, the project by the Metrolina Regional Model Team, and then the critical intersection analysis supported or funded by or rather proposed by Union County and supported by us for I think the last three iterations of the critical intersection analysis. And then these are previous year's discretionary grant program planning studies that are being carried over into fiscal year 25. So one from fiscal year 23 that covers multiple jurisdictions, then from fiscal year 24 from Indian Trail, Matthews, Mooresville, and Stallings. And so our action again being requested tonight is that the board approve the fiscal year 2025 UPWP. And again, you see there the TCC's recommendation. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Cook. Questions? No, this isn't the first time that we've heard this. This is a quiet group tonight. So if there's no questions, is there a motion? Councilmember Driggs, Mayor Becker, we've got a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sailing right along, agenda item 7, our update on our strategic plan implementation. Brian?
Thank you very much. Good evening. I am Brian Elgort. I am the project implementation coordinator for the CRTPO. And tonight I'm happy to provide an update on staff's implementation efforts in support of our strategic plan. I will also be previewing some anticipated activities during 2024. I hope everyone was able to grab the summary sheet that was out by the sign-in table. That will be sort of a good takeaway summary of everything that I will be discussing tonight. As a refresher, the strategic plan was adopted by this board in November of 2021. Part of the strategic plan was identifying the CRTPO's mission statement and vision, which you can see here on the slide. We also developed 6 goals and their various strategies to support this mission statement and vision. Goal 1 directs the CRTPO to lead, to provide leadership on regional mobility issues. As part of that, staff conducted presentations at multiple national conferences to bring awareness to work that we're doing in the region. We also had our board orientation event earlier this year and provide several education sessions throughout the year. So far in 2024, we've had 2 of the sessions for the Linking Transit and Land Use at the Community Scale Training Series, which is being conducted by Central Iowa Regional Council. The first 2 sessions were in February and then earlier this month, immediately following our TCC meetings. And we have 2 more sessions later this year in May and June. And these are open to TCC members and our member jurisdiction staff. So we hope to see people from all of your jurisdictions attending this. The CRTPO is also placing an emphasis on safety planning this year. We submitted an application to the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity discretionary grant program. And we are sending staff to attend the AMPO Planning Tools and Training Symposium coming up to get some lessons learned and bring that information back to us. Goal 2 is all about engagement and communication. So last year, our participation in consultation planner, Judy Dellert, started a quarterly meeting for member jurisdiction public information officers to make sure we are coordinating our public engagement efforts and making sure that everyone is aware of all the work going on in the region. And we anticipate there being a lot of opportunities for public input later this year. 2055 MTP will be kicking off. There will also be opportunities related to prioritization 7.0 local input points. And we also plan to work on updating our Title VI and limited English proficiency plans this year. Goal 3 is about fostering a culture of collaboration with our partners. We have now done 2 joint MPO roundtables with the Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPO. We had the Beyond 77 Task Force, which held several meetings. Commissioner Qualls represents the CRTPO for the Connect Beyond Advancing the Plan Committee. And we also have several joint efforts going on with Central Lina. And this year we are working on developing the Beyond 77 Coalition, which will focus on implementation of Beyond 77 recommendations, as well as working with your jurisdictions to see what sort of IIJ grant opportunities we can work together on pursuing. Goal 4 is about encouraging members' participation in the CRTPO's planning and decision-making process. Last year, we conducted 9 separate CRTPO 101 presentations for member jurisdictions and our partners. We are happy to come and talk to y'all's staff, your boards, and tell them about what CRTPO is and what we do and how they can be involved. Please speak to staff if you're interested in having us come and do one of those presentations. We're also working on several education sessions later this year. Some possible topics would be include the CRTPO discretionary grants program. We're also looking at Vision Zero and safety planning, as well as active transportation. Goal 5 is about continuously improving our internal operations to fulfill the CRTPO's mission and vision. So this is about staff and staff work and making sure that everything is moving efficiently and smoothly. So we have monthly staff coordination meetings to make sure that we are up to date on implementing the strategic plan. And a lot of that has been integrated into our annual report and will continue to do so. This year, we're really focusing on Goal 5 implementation. So we are working on some organizational efficiency improvements. We will also be evaluating our committees and working groups to determine opportunities for process improvements. And we will be developing the scope for phase 2 of our staffing and resources study. Phase 1 was conducted and completed in 2019. So we feel it's an appropriate time to sort of revisit that and make sure that we are up to date. Lastly, Goal 6 is all about expanding regional transportation funding. Earlier in February, our joint MPO roundtable with Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPO, which I hope y'all were able to attend. The topic was Pennies for Progress, which is a South Carolina program that uses an additional penny tax to fund projects. There were a lot of great discussions around that and how we might be able to do something similar. As I mentioned before, the CRTPO applied to the RAISE grant program for 100% federally funded safety study. This year, we are working on developing a grants resource webpage on the CRTPO website, which will offer notices of funding opportunity and highlight sort of all the various, because we know there's so many different IIJA grant programs and similar, trying to distill those down to make that useful information for y'all. And then we will also have a Beyond 77 alternative funding report. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions for Brian? Right, and again, all of that's on the handout that.
Yes, absolutely. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm happy to provide more context as needed.
Super. Take advantage of having staff come out to present to your board meeting. It's great information and, helps bring everybody along of what's going on and when you're ready to apply for a grant. Do you have a timetable on the grant webpage?
So we have reached an agreement and figured out which database software we're going to be using on our website. And so I think I have a meeting scheduled next week to start development on the actual database. We hope to have it up by the summer.
Wow, that's huge. So.
Yeah, I do have a question. So I know you talked a little bit with Central Lina on some activities. We reached out to them on their grant process and how they share that information on their websites with us?
Yes, we have coordinated with them a bit. And we are also using a similar model to what AMPO uses for their federal grant opportunity NOFO database. But yes, we are very much trying to collaborate with Central Lina on grant, especially the grant writing classes that they provide and things like that.
Other questions, comments? Oh, great job. Thank you. All right. We are scooting right along here. Item number 8, Beyond 77 update, Paul?
All right, good evening, board members. My name is Paul Benton. I'm the Senior Transportation and Planning Engineer with CRTPO, and I'm the project manager for Beyond 77. I'm here to provide a brief update on Beyond 77 and to let you know about some of the ongoing and upcoming work for this important initiative for CRTPO. So this evening, I'll highlight the 3 topics that are here on this screen. Just a quick overview, background to refamiliarize this group with Beyond 77 and some of its history. And then a look at some of our strategies and solutions that were recommended by Beyond 77 that have a focus on transit. And then finally, we'll be looking ahead at some of the upcoming activities that we have and updates we have planned to bring to the board over the next several months. So first, a bit of background on Beyond 77. Beyond 77 is a corridor study for the alignment between Statesville and South Carolina state line. The focus area for this study was a 3-mile swath surrounding I-77, and the emphasis of the document was on connectivity and alternative transportation options rather than improvements to the main line of I-77 itself. So to be clear, this document doesn't address any planned infrastructure improvements along I-77 mainline. Rather, it's that 3-mile radius around I-77. This project was also not focused on specific capital needs in the vicinity. Instead, it's not recommending major infrastructure projects in the corridor, but the majority of the recommendations are focused on kind of policies, programs, and strategies that help to align transportation planning initiatives across our region to improve access and mobility for all modes of transportation. The plan produced numerous recommended strategies and solutions. So work is underway now to assess those recommendations, evaluate them with partners in our region, and consolidate and then plan for implementation. And finally, the report was adopted. Excuse me, the plan was conducted over about 3 years, so initiated early in 2019 and adopted by the CRTPO board in 2022. So moving into some of those numerous strategies and solutions that the plan recommended, we wanted to provide a quick update on those that have a particular focus on transit. There are 9 recommendations in Beyond 77 that directly address transit service and improvements, as well as numerous more that were identified through the Connect Beyond study. So some of the examples of those are sort of public-facing information sharing, so improvements to mapping and seamless fare purchasing, things like that. CRTPO right now is working to onboard a consultant who will help us to analyze and assist with implementation of these transit-specific recommendations. So that work will identify complementary and overlapping efforts between our plans through Beyond 77, as well as the Connect Beyond plan, and then assist us with prioritization and ranking and implementation plans for those that we determine to be the most viable. So this work really leverages the work of our partners at Central Lina, as well as transit providers around the region, and the newly formed Transit Providers Work Group at CRTPO. So we're excited to move this work forward, and we'll have more updates on this initiative in the coming months. And then lastly, I wanted to provide a quick look ahead at some of the upcoming activities over the next few months. So staff are currently reviewing the final draft of the alternative funding report that was prepared by RS&H, one of our consultants. So this outlines possible immediate midterm revenue sources that our region could potentially leverage for increasing transportation funding, both for the Beyond 77 corridor and the broader area. The document will provide projections and additional information on the potential revenue generation for a number of different alternatives,
as well as outlining what degree of enabling legislative action would be required to implement some of these alternatives. So we'll be providing an update at next month's TCC and board meeting to share the final version of this document and make sure that it's accessible to our board and members of the public. Finally, work continues on the formation of the Beyond 77 Coalition. We've held recent meetings with our Beyond 77 focus group to gather their input on the structure and potential membership of that group. The coalition will guide CRTPO staff and regional staff in the implementation of Beyond 77's priority recommendations, and will be tasked with providing leadership and direction on related to the funding to future alternative transportation funding for our region. So we're anticipating returning to this board to provide an update on that and share the next steps at our May 15th meeting. So with that, I'll conclude and thank you all for your time and happy to answer any questions.
Wearing my DOT hat, I was involved in both Connect Beyond through the COG and Beyond 77 through this. And, they both had a ton of recommendations, and there was a lot of them sort of overlap. And there was one that was identified as sort of a piece of low-hanging fruit for both, which was seamless connectivity for fares between different transit systems. And we were able to get some grant money to help facilitate like software and that kind of thing. And so I'm curious about where that particular initiative stands.
Yeah, so I think we'll continue to develop that through the transit recommendations and the contract that I mentioned there. We're working with a consultant who will be able to provide us with some kind of outside expertise on how different agencies around the country have tackled that. And then I believe there's work that's being advanced as well through the Transit Providers Work Group to specifically related to the initiative that you mentioned about the funding for that seamless fare integration.
And is that meetings like between CATS and Ryder?
Yeah, so all the regional transit providers are gathering. I believe it's a quarterly meeting that Centralina and CRTPO have helped to launch, and now those are sort of regularly occurring as of the last few months.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions? Okay. Hearing no more questions, we'll look forward to more. It sounds like in April and May, right?
That's right.
Great. Right.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Moving right along again, transfer of planning responsibilities and memorandum of agreement. Mr. Cook.
All right, thank you. I was looking around the room and I don't know if there was anyone at the table tonight who was here a decade ago. And if you were, you might remember this because we only deal with this once every decade. So if it seems like it's new, there's a good reason for that. We haven't touched this since 2014. And because we have to do these after every census, and I'll get into that in a moment. So what we want to talk about tonight is why these agreements are needed, and what the agreements actually do. Our staff recommendation at this point, give you an update on status and schedule, and then certainly answer any questions you might have. So first of all, as to why these agreements are needed, you may have heard us talk in the past about how the regulations that govern what we do are in the Code of Federal Regulations. And there's that in that second bullet there, there's the quote there that talks about the requirement that when a part of an urbanized area or an urban area, as they're called now, served by one NPO and extends into another metropolitan planning area, the NPOs shall at a minimum establish written agreements that clearly identify the coordination and division of responsibilities between the NPOs. So that's really the crux of what we're talking about tonight, why we're doing this. And so the future action that we'll need is to enter into those agreements for you to give the consent to for us to enter into those agreements with some of our neighboring NPOs. And to get into it in a little bit more detail here at the local level is that after the 2020 census, the urban area boundaries throughout the region, throughout the country, changed in some cases rather substantially. If you remember, if you were here about a year ago when we first started talking about this, the Charlotte urban area actually contracted by 100 square miles, I think it was, something in that area. It was rather substantial. Our population still increased, but the urban area actually decreased. That did not necessarily affect our planning area boundary. The two are related, but they're not necessarily the same. In fact, this body reaffirmed the current planning area boundary at I think our September meeting, October meeting of last year. So the boundary we had following the 2010 census is the boundary we have following the 2020 census, and that will remain in place conceivably until any changes that might be necessary after the 2030 census. So, but those urban area boundaries changed after the 2020 census. So the Charlotte urban area extends into York County, South Carolina, and the area around Lake Wylie. It also extends into Gaston County up around Mountain Island Lake, but the Gastonia urban area extends into Mecklenburg County and our planning area around the Whitewater Center. And then the Concord urban area, which is the basis for the Cabarrus-Rowan MPO, extends into Mecklenburg County. And you can see those areas in yellow on the screen there in the map. Those bright yellow areas are where urban area boundaries extend into a different MPO's planning area. So it's not, there aren't huge, we're not talking huge areas here, huge geographies. The biggest, I think, contiguous area is there in York County along around Lake Wylie. That's substantially smaller than it was in the past, but there is still that part of the Charlotte urban area that extends into York County, South Carolina. So those are the areas that we're talking about today. And what these agreements will do is they will, at their most basic level, is transfer metropolitan planning responsibilities so that that part of, let me go back, that part of York County that is within the Rock Hill MPO's planning area, they will be responsible for conducting the metropolitan planning process in that part, in York County, in that part of the Charlotte urban area. So that's the fundamental reason for these agreements. And what they do is they describe how that planning process will be conducted. They clarify the allocation of federal transportation planning funds and the distribution of those funds as well. It goes into some detail on the coordination of data collection activities. That's a big factor for the Metrolina regional model, the travel demand model that we use extensively. And then there are issues associated with the air quality conformity process. So our recommendation is to, and there is no action being asked tonight on this. This is for information only. But our recommendation is for this board to authorize the execution of those agreements with the neighboring MPOs in those two instances there, where we transfer planning area responsibilities for some of the Charlotte urban area to the Rock Hill MPO, as well as to the Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPO. And in those cases where the Gastonia and Concord urban areas extend into our planning area, that we also transfer those planning area, those responsibilities. And this is consistent with past censuses. We probably had to do this since 1990 when the Charlotte urban area first extended beyond into another MPO's planning area. So we did it after 1990, 2000, 2010, and we're doing it again this year. In terms of status and schedule, we're in pretty good shape, I believe, with the agreements with the Cabarrus-Rowan and the Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPOs. Matter of fact, the Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPO has approved an agreement, and that was the example that was in your agenda packet. So I think we'll be ready for April adoption. And our recommendation is to place this on the consent agenda. And we'd like to kind of get maybe a consensus from the group tonight as to whether or not you would agree to that. For Rock Hill, it's a little bit different. There are some transit funding issues that we still have to wrestle with. Crossing the state line complicates things a little bit. And so we looking at maybe the May meeting for action on that with the agreement with Rock Hill. So is there consensus that maybe this is a consent agenda item, Madam Chair, I'll leave it up to
Anybody have
you.
any opposition to this being a consent agenda item?
I just have a question on it.
Sure.
How will this affect the funding that we already get by moving this?
Zero impact. There will be no effect on funding at all.
So it sounds like a consent agenda is okay.
Okay. So it's we do a lot of bureaucratic things. This is probably the ultimate in the bureaucratic things we do. I wish I could put some lipstick on this thing, but I can't. So it's just one of those things. Fortunately, we only have to do it once a decade. So that's the good news. So it's not like we'll be coming back to you every year on something like this.
Other questions? Okay, hearing none. We'll
Very
move
good.
along.
Thank you.
Now for the fun stuff. You know, we get through all the dry stuff. One of the things we talked about, myself and Vice Chair Richardson spoke with staff is, you know, we talk a lot about planning and kind of gets dry and we forget to celebrate when projects are either getting ready to start, they've finished, and again, we just forget to celebrate. And so we're gonna each month do a little project highlight and, you know, celebrate a little of what, let's see, dollars at work. So our first up, Mayor Becker, as being the longer tenured member here, we kind of chose him out of the hat, if you will. So he has phoned a friend and brought along Will to help and Neil to highlight their project. So we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you,
Will.
Madam Chair, and thank you, Board. We are really excited to present to you a project spotlight for our Mineral Springs Sidewalk Plan. Very excited to share with you the details of the final draft plan that is pending adoption with Mineral Springs' Town Council. So, Mayor, do you have any opening remarks before we kick things off?
No, I think the next slide.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and move
start
forward.
there.
Okay, awesome. So just going through our agenda, we will be talking about the project committee membership, some of the folks from some very different and very important stakeholder groups that participated, talking about the timeline of this whole process. It's taken us a couple months to arrive here, and some of the study goals and priorities that were produced out of this plan. A little bit of background on Mineral Springs, just some interesting history about the town, and then some of the inventory and findings, the recommendations, and the next steps as part of this. So, of course, Mayor Becker was part of our committee, but joined by him as well is Vicky Brooks, also from the town. And from CRTPO staff, we had Curtis Bridges, Neil Burke, and myself. We had some consultant support to complete some of the more technical parts of the study. So our thanks to Frederick Frank from WSP. From Union County, Bjorn Hansen. From NCDOT Division 10, Theo Gatea. And then had a really great local development input as well, which we'll talk about. John's participation was really critical to some of the right-of-way and some of the preemptive work that could be done to provide some more mobility as part of the downtown development of Mineral Springs. So discussing the timeline, we had three committee meetings over a period of a couple of months here. So our kickoff was in early October. That was our first opportunity to meet as a group in person. We had a chance to walk around the site, looking at some of the different parts of the corridor, but then also the downtown core of the project. In November, we came back virtually and had a discussion about some of the analysis from those initial findings and inventory. And then in February, we were presented with the final plan. And so again, that one is pending adoption. And of course, that is looking like about April will be kind of the rough timeline for adopting that with the town. Okay.
Hey, you can see on the screen, Mineral Springs has always had a downtown, such as it is. It's maybe 2 blocks long, so the buildings are there, but it's been very underutilized, underdeveloped. It was run down, to be quite blunt. It was a pretty bad downtown. Those of you from Union County or even Mecklenburg County who've been there, it had a long way to go. And I would say that right around 2015, Union County made one piece of sewer service available, which enabled food service to begin. It's probably some of the worst soil in Western Union County. It's right in downtown Mineral Springs. It's on a hard knoll of bull tallow, and nothing would perk. You really couldn't flush a toilet or run a sink downtown. So it was really holding back development. So that very small sewer line helped, and we began to get businesses coming in. We want to really nourish and nurture that small business community. And so last year, I was thinking about some of the discussions with the CRTPO work plan, PL funds, that these things are available as assistance to small towns. And I went to Neil and said, Neil, can we do a really, really small scale sidewalk plan, just covering downtown, just less than a quarter mile each direction in the four crossroads, and see if we can get on path to maybe apply for DA funding or some other source of funds or pool some resources to make this happen, because we really have got a lot of business now springing up, but to try to walk from one to another, it's one of the most unfriendly places. Will and Neil and Curtis isn't here, I don't think, but they walked with us, and it's amazing. You'll see a couple of pictures how pedestrian unfriendly downtown Mineral Springs really is. From your car, it doesn't look as bad as it really is. So we talked about building upon existing pedestrian facilities. There are a few. We had required sidewalks for new construction. The town hall has sidewalks. The fire department has sidewalks, but that's it. So we want to connect that, and we wanted to work within the limits of the pending improvement of the intersection. That was a Union County critical intersection study, priority intersection, designated for turn lanes and signals. And that's going to be a lot of expansion. So we didn't want to put sidewalk infrastructure in now and have to tear it all out. There will be a little bit, as you'll see from the plan, but we're trying to work back behind the right of way in many cases, which is where the landowner cooperation has come from and have been really, really critical to making this a more practical project.
Talk about some.
Yeah, history of Mineral Springs, and these figures are pretty correct. And I always say, when someone says, where's Mineral Springs? It's along Highway 75 between Waxhaw and Monroe. It's an old town. It was a railroad stop. It used to be called Potter's. It's had a post office for a long time. It was incorporated in 1905. It was probably less than a square mile, centered just around the Potter Road Highway 75 intersection. During the Depression era, Mineral Springs, like a lot of small towns, just stopped collecting taxes, stopped functioning as a municipality, and surrendered its charter. And a group of residents in 1998 decided that Mineral Springs needed to reestablish its identity as a rural community. It had a farming background. It had a lot of local merchants and large lots and equestrian, just something that we weren't seeing a lot of in Union County, or we were seeing a lot of being pushed away. We wanted to try to preserve that. So we reincorporated the town. And but we still wanted to keep our business district there and hopefully reinvigorate it. And this is where we are now, 24 years later, hopefully making progress.
Awesome. So we'll talk about the inventory here. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the study, we had an opportunity to walk the site. As Mayor Becker indicated, a bit unfriendly to pedestrians. You can see some pictures on the bottom there. Several different environmental challenges. So we had some culverts that are, pretty deep and a bit difficult to walk around today. Shoulders that are very narrow, some higher speed traffic running through there as well. You can see we have some pretty substantial average annual daily traffic numbers on both segments of this corridor here. And a substantial number of intersection crashes as well from that couple year period. One of the other challenges too is we have a single track railroad crossing just north of this intersection. So a large concern that was brought up is congestion pouring into the intersection, generally creating motorist related challenges, but then of course really having no accommodations as well for pedestrians who are trying to navigate all of that. So as it says here, it's just 200 feet north of this intersection. So there's no existing turn lanes, no real spillover for any of that congestion, especially when school is letting out or when folks are trying to get to and from work during the day. The other element too is some of the stormwater considerations. So again, varying culvert sizes, open ditches, no curbing for the street. So the pavement itself is kind of struggling from some of those challenges, but then of course that bleeds into the right of way where some of the pedestrian, lacking pedestrian infrastructure already is. If it's a rainy day, you're navigating that challenge as well. So you can see on this map on the left is our half-mile study area focus. So again, just this intersection and some of the branches directly off of it. So we'll go through some of the elements of the plan recommendation. So we're going to zoom out first and look at all sections of this corridor. So first and foremost, we had, again, great participation from one of the developers locally. He is donating some right-of-way as part of some of the property that he currently owns, which is critical to some of the NCDOT-related improvements at the intersection. But then west on Waxhaw Parkway, those couple of parcels will be key to allowing a small sidewalk to run in front of those properties along Waxhaw Highway. The second element is a proposed 10-foot sidewalk that the developer is also including in his plans. He's proposing a small commercial center that's on that northeast corner there. So he's already going to go ahead and install a nice wide sidewalk for us, again, ahead of the NCDOT plans to improve the intersection in the long term.
Yeah, that thing labeled number one, that very, very critical quadrant had rundown mill houses that had been rental, then one had burned down. There was an old general store, roof was falling in. This man bought that property, tore those buildings down. He is permitted with the county. He's submitting his zoning work with our planning department right now, hoping to break ground on that project, actually within months or even weeks, I hope. So that's going to be critical, and that sidewalk can actually be going in before anything else happens. But we certainly will be to connect to that as part of our hope.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be a good first kickoff to a lot of this work. The number 3 there is a proposed five-foot sidewalk. So this would be Mineral Springs going in ahead of the NCDOT work, just to get something on the ground, right? I mean, there's an existing pedestrian challenge here, and it's going to be, again, sometime before major improvements come to the intersection. And so having that laid down first is very key. The same thing would then happen towards the southern part there on Potter Road, that number 4, connecting folks into the town hall.
It's kind of a shame that you can't really safely walk from the town hall to our businesses downtown. The curve doesn't really show. It's sort of under the number 4 there. You don't want to even try to walk that.
Pretty blind.
Yeah, it's blind. The cars are speeding by. Even our own town hall is really disconnected from our business district, even though you can see it.
For sure.
So it's kind of a critical need.
We have a private business sign that needs to be relocated, some driveway reconstruction and mailbox relocation, another sidewalk element again along South Potter Road with some curb and gutter, again addressing some of the stormwater challenges. Again, some more closed drainage, just general elements to improve that aspect as well. And then, of course, some of the accessibility considerations for the intersection. So another really interim solution there is adding some pedestrian ramps, potentially some pedestrian signal heads in the interim. Again, pending some coordination with NCDOT on that one, but just overall providing for some more access. And then, of course, again, that connection to the existing infrastructure there.
And actually, I think it's important to build on what Will said. Those ramps downtown and the striped crosswalks and those few accessibility features are hopefully the only things that would be affected by the intersection improvements. Not everything else is going to be located in such a way that it wouldn't have to be ripped out and redone. Just some really, really minor improvements would be the only thing that would maybe 5 years of use, because we know that intersection is not going to happen in the next few years.
Yep.
It's too big a project.
Yeah, paint and concrete, so nothing too much.
Here's the detail.
Yeah, and then we'll just zoom in and I'll kind of flash some of these numbers on the screen again. So just to give you an idea at the actual intersection, this downtown emphasis, some of the improvements taking place there. So again, critical short-term improvements as we are awaiting this project through NCDOT's process. Okay, some of the next steps related to this is the Mineral Springs Town Board considering adoption of this plan in April. So hopefully here pretty soon to really carry this plan forward to make some of those local investments in the short term. CRTPO staff will consider submitting these segments to P8 in 2026. And then, of course, also Mineral Springs considering the submission of this to our discretionary fall call program this fall in 2024. So some critical kind of, again, short-term investments that can take place on this one.
And this is a very, very DA fundable plan. This is the kind of thing, we can be this small, especially when it's a bike ped plan. And some of you have seen the DA plans that were just awarded a couple of meetings ago. Some of them are fairly big projects. We will, I hope, have this ready to submit in August with the project calls. The total cost that was generated by the engineers, just planning level costs, was about $1.7 million for all of the sidewalk work, which, it's not that much money in the scheme of transportation improvements. The developer portion where he's doing it anyway is a couple of $100,000. We're down to about 1.4 million. And that project was priced by the engineer as 4 separate projects, actually 5. And each one of those therefore had mobilization and engineering and traffic control. So the thought was that if we decided to just submit this as a single plan, we might be able to consolidate some of those costs, get the total cost, including the developer's contribution, to below 1.2 million. And if we did that, I think a 30% match from Mineral Springs could be a very doable thing, as small as we are, and be able to hopefully get DA funding. So you can actually, this is just an illustration, and I think it's one of the things I wanted to share with the delegates here from some of the smaller jurisdictions. These are projects, and these are pieces of planning assistance. These are consults that CRTPO provides for the member jurisdictions, and being a membership has its benefits, as the American Express commercial goes. And we really appreciate the expertise. I had no ability. We have a tiny staff. So we didn't have any professionalism to actually implement or take on the study ourselves. We needed to get somebody to guide us through it. And here are the experts. And so very grateful and really quite optimistic that we can have a very positive project.
Yeah, it was a great team. We had a very good time completing this. So
Any questions about what we did and what we're planning on doing?
I got one.
Certainly.
In Union County, if you have new growth, regardless of what it is, there's usually a requirement now that everyone who's building something puts a sidewalk out. Is any of the areas in Mineral Springs been built recent enough that should have affected them and it didn't?
Nope, actually not. In fact, you could go back to the slide showing the close-up.
Whoopsies.
We got a pretty good
Ooh, I
deal.
jumped way back here.
Yeah, how do you get back? Oh, you went back too far.
Sorry, I'm gonna pardon
Oh,
your
we're getting
eyes.
close. Yeah,
Here we go,
we're
here we
getting
go.
close. There we go.
There we
Almost
go.
there. And we'll look at that one that was the close-up, because that'll really illustrate. But this one's
Downtown
good too.
too? Okay.
This one's good
Okay.
too. If you look at the upper left quadrant, the northwest quadrant, where there's a shopping center, it says shopping, and there's an orange sidewalk. That building's been there since the 80s, I think, and it's been a lot of things. It's a strip center. It has a lot of spaces in it. He did a fairly major renovation of it, at which point we did require him that was enough work that we asked him to put sidewalks in. And so those sidewalks are right at the edge of the right of way. We're hopefully, it looks like the design of the intersection improvements will not take those sidewalks out, that they're going to be able to remain there. So he put it in. The fire department did the same thing. They built in like 2010, I believe. They were required to add the sidewalk, and we were required to add the sidewalk down at the town hall. Everything else along there in the area, nothing was built since there was anything in our ordinance to require sidewalk construction. So there aren't any sidewalks.
Okay, yeah, I see now. That's what I was asking about, the newer growth.
Yeah, and we didn't have a lot downtown because people couldn't, there was no real access to proper sewer service. So people did not want to expand because they really couldn't use what they had.
Well, other than the fire department and the town hall, probably the Circle K would have been the last one built right there.
Yeah.
And that thing's been there for 20-some years.
That went in just before Mineral Springs took over zoning. That went in around 2003, I believe. So
Okay.
yeah, just as you say, just over 20 years.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Other questions? All right. It looks like your plan is obviously going to be ADA compliant, so really bringing along a lot more people that haven't been able to
Oh, yeah.
have some mobility throughout town.
No question about that, which is why we're doing those temporary stub outs downtown, because some of the sidewalks will be a little bit higher than grade because we have to sort of align with what the future curb grade is going to be for the intersection. So the ramps will be essential. And actually, what neither Will nor I mentioned, it does show on this. Just north, there's a green line at the top of the screen where it says Potter Road. They did want to extend the sidewalk across the railroad track there. And we understand that CSX, although they're hard to work with, the railroads are not the easiest, most friendly utilities to work with, but that if you consider a shoulder widening and you use asphalt, not concrete, because that's easy to remove if they don't like it, we can get a level asphalt sidewalk across that track and just go up north of the track. We have to stop there because we only are focusing on a narrow area, but at least you're not trying to trip over those rails, so somebody can have some accessible route from north of the tracks to the area.
Oh, great job.
Okay.
Look forward to this becoming reality with some
We'll report.
funding in the fall, right?
We'll report, especially if we get it fast tracked. Thanks again.
Other questions,
you.
comments? All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
So, and thanks for being the first to share like that. With that. Yeah, obviously, everybody's going to get an opportunity to share a project throughout the year. So be thinking about what you and your team would want to share. All right, moving on to upcoming agenda items. Neil?
Thank you. So a reminder to everybody that the April CRTPO board meeting has been rescheduled from April 17th to April 24th due to the North Carolina Association of MPOs conference that several of the staff are attending. So what that does is it moves it from its normally scheduled third Wednesday of the month to the fourth Wednesday of the month. So I just want to make sure everyone has that updated date on their calendar. And that was the calendar that the CRTPO board voted on back in November of last year. So moving into the April 24th CRTPO board agenda, we anticipate the following agenda items. So the transfer of planning responsibilities, memorandum of agreements between CRTPO and Cabarrus Rowan MPO, as well as the Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPO and CRTPO. Those are going to be on consent. That's the only action item that we're aware of, but we do have several information reports next month. We anticipate an update on the memorandum of understanding, an initial update on the 2055 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. That's something that staff is just beginning to work on. We will have an education set in the NCDOT P7.0 local input point process, and that'll be another reoccurring process that we'll be bringing a lot of updates and a couple of action items before the board in 2024. We do have another project spotlight. That is the East-West Connector project in Mooresville. That project just broke ground. So we'll hear a project spotlight update about that. And then there is another information report about the Beyond 77 alternative funding report update that Paul mentioned earlier this evening. And I have just one announcement tonight. Again, it's about the ethics filing requirement. So as of today, we have 15 of the 45 CRTPO voting members have successfully completed their statement of economic interest and real estate disclosure filings. And I want to remind new board members, they must file their SEI and RED immediately to avoid financial penalty. And then returning CRTPO board members must complete the SEI and RED filing requirements by April 15th.
And Neil, for the newer folks, if you've not completed that you're probably getting a nasty email from, what's her name?
Suzanne Singh.
Yeah, so if you have a nasty gram in your email from Suzanne Singh, pay attention to that because that's.
Question.
Yeah. Maybe.
Isn't there an MTC meeting on the 24th? Oh, that's the one is at 3, okay.
It's a long day.
Long day. We'll bring you extra snacks.
Bring a coffee pot.
Yeah. There you go. Good, good. Yeah, so please make sure you do that as a new member. And then, of course, if you're returning, April 15th is the date. This will make everyone happy if you've got that finished. Because after April 15th, am I correct, Neil, that you cannot vote?
Yeah, that you have to fulfill those requirements before April 15th if you're a returning member to be seated as a voting member of CRTPO, and the State Ethics Commission can levy financial penalties. I think it's a class 1 misdemeanor if you miss multiple of their deadlines.
So if we haven't done the training, we should have received an email by now? Or we would expect to see an email? 'Cause
Well, it's not training, Mayor. It's more just filling out these two forms, the state, the SEI and the RAD.
exactly.
Now, he says 2 forms, but it takes a little while, so.
I remember doing it. I just want to make sure that I did it correctly and it's been filed, so. You've mentioned this multiple times. I
Yeah.
just want to clarify that someone will be sending a message if we have not already done. it, Or
Yeah,
they have
so-
not received it.
So it's both Suzanne Singh and myself. Like I look up, a couple times between now and the deadline to see who hasn't. And I just send that reminder only to the folks that are not showing up on the state's,
So if we're not
database.
getting that, we're all good.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you're good.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Any other items that?
That's all I have.
Okay, great. Just a couple of quick updates under our board member comments. Many of you were able to attend the joint meeting with the Gaston, Lincoln, Cleveland, MPO, and, that was a great session. Very, very well attended on the 29th of February. And this was the 5th time that our two organizations had worked together. And as everyone continues to hear this year, and even though we've said it in the past, it remains just imperative going forward that we have collaboration and regionalism if we're going to win in all kind of transportation as a state and as an MPO. So again, thank you for everybody that came. We heard the great presentation about pennies for progress. Many of you had not heard that before, so I hope you found it intriguing. York County provided that information. In addition to that presentation, we had a great panel with our moderator from I still call it the COG, so forgive me, the Central Ina, with the NCDOT Gaston Business Association, and great feedback, I thought, from both panelists on that. The joint meeting kind of concluded with our roundtables, and it really was overwhelming with the enthusiasm that we want to move forward with having an additional conversation and trying to find those new funding mechanisms to be beneficial. So the potential next steps for everyone is to develop a shared legislative agenda and advocacy approach for both MPOs. And really checking out some additional research and the potentials for the Pennies for Progress type of program in North Carolina. So again, thank you for everybody that came. For those that weren't able to make it, stand by for, additional information as we bring that forward. But I really would like to know, just kind of from everybody here, not an official vote, but just your thoughts and feedback, anything from that meeting. And again, your opinions of moving forward with a joint shared legislative agenda. Anything, I think, Lee, you were there? You want to? Not to call you out or anything, but
I was there and I was riveted. But my neighbor here seems to have quite a bit of experience with Pennies for Progress. And so she's been telling me a different point of view. And so I'm not sure if, I would want to learn more, because we were getting one point of view, which seemed pretty persuasive, but it seems like there might need to be more dialogue before I would need to hear more dialogue.
anything you want to offer, Amelia?
Oh, thank you. No, not without having some more background.
So would it be fair that maybe we just bring this to staff let's work with the other
That would be
MPO, kind
a
of bring
good
back
idea.
a little bit more details, some maybe a direct presentation to our group here. Does that sound fair? Okay, great. And so let's see, we talked about the ethics, and then at our last meeting, Brett and I with NCDOT 10 had offered some information follow-up from questions before, and there were still a couple of questions. So we asked him if he would bring us up to speed tonight on the rest of the questions. So if you want to come up and run through, I think there was just a couple of questions left, and I think Neil had sent out to the group follow-up as well. So we're following up the follow-up. I think that's what page we're on.
So, thanks for asking me to come up. Last month, if everyone was here, we provided an update on the 77 corridor. There is quite a few things moving around on that right now, as most of y'all know. And at the end of the presentation, we talked a little bit about the extended vehicle pilot. That's the program where, vehicles that are longer than your average passenger car could also use the express lanes in the northern segments of I-77. It would include, single axle trailers. I went through a little bit of information about that, and I had several questions towards the end of the presentation, and wanted to follow up with you guys on that. I did send that information to Neil. He didn't have, in his defense, any time to get that included in your information. I'm not sure how y'all may have disseminated that. So that was a kind of quick notice, but I just wanted to address a few of the questions. Primarily, the questions related to, the revenue share associated with the extended vehicle pilot, and also the safety of the extended vehicle pilot. So the revenue share information was, I didn't quite have the numbers in front of me, but in the information I sent to Neil, we're talking about a revenue share that came to NCDOT beginning in 2021 when it was started. That was a couple $100,000. And then in 2023, NCDOT received just over $1 million. And in 2023, just over $2 million. And it's increasing. We're seeing that same trend in 2024. So the revenue share amounts are increasing, which tells us the utilization of that program has been increasing. And then the second question was, or actually it was, I think we had questions from two different board members related to safety. The question was, did we consider safety when we brought this, when we extended this pilot? And I actually wanted to put that back on I-77 Mobility Partners to help answer that question. And so I received a response from them, which I shared with Neil just the other day, just yesterday, I think. So again, very short time frame. So nobody's had a lot of time to digest any of this. But inside that response, there was a kind of a breakdown of the traffic crash rates that were related specifically to extended vehicles. And those, I jotted down a little bit of this just ahead of this meeting. So extended vehicles actually were, let me start over really quick. The way we measure crash rates is how many crashes occur per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. So that's the statistic we're working with. So an average urban interstate has got 136 or so crashes per 100 million vehicle miles traveled. Out of the extended vehicle breakout, only 13.5 crashes occurred associated with extended vehicles. So much lower than the average. I wanted to make sure we relayed that back to you guys. But also Mobility Partners noted in their response back to me that, in their words, I believe, and I don't want to quote it exactly. I don't have that information in front of me. Apologize, I didn't bring that with me up. But there's, a potential increase in safety and operational characteristics of an express lane system, especially if you're going to talk about taking that vehicle, that extended vehicle pilot, and translating that into a heavier vehicle pilot, right? Or a program. So that was the information I want to share with you guys. I don't know if you guys were able to print that and see that information or how it was sent out, but hopefully I explained that a little bit in a clear way so y'all can understand what we received back from our 77 Mobility Partners. But if y'all want to talk through any of that, we'll try to do that, at least get the conversation started.
And we'll get that disseminate it out to everybody.
Okay.
because It kind of came late, but we wanted to make sure that we got an update on there. Mr. Tilley?
The single axle vehicles that you tow on that, normally speaking, if you just put a single axle trailer behind either a car or a pickup, those axle weights are way, way lower than the vehicle itself. So you're not gonna have something real heavy there. And last time, I think you told me that if you have that trailer, it's like double the fee. Correct?
So I didn't get into the exact rates because I wasn't familiar with them. I'm not completely familiar with the rates, but the extended vehicle rates are higher than a general passenger vehicle.
Well, I get that, but I thought I asked the question, you said it was like double of what a single vehicle would be. Maybe I'm wrong, but anyway, being the fact that the weight limit is lower on that trailer, if they thought about lowering that extra charge a little bit to maybe get even more people in that lane?
You know, I definitely don't want to try to speak for our 77 Mobility Partners. But I could say that I don't think it's based on the weight necessarily as much, as space it takes up. I would put it that way.
Get that, but I mean,
And-
basically weight is what wears the road out.
Sure.
If you got a toll road, the weight would be the way to figure on how you would, entice somebody to want to use that part.
Well, yeah, there's a lot we could talk about there, and I understand too, those, a single axle trailer, if it's a 3,500 pound axle, which would be, pretty standard, it's not the weight that's the issue, right? That's pretty easy to see, but I do believe it would, and we're talking about it's a managed lane, right? So the requirements are ultimately to maintain a minimum speed limit in that lane. And so it's a lot different from just a toll road, I think we've talked about that a little bit in the past. And so I don't know if there's a direct correlation between weight, wear and tear. I don't know that that's the driving factor. I'd put it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Baker?
Maybe answering a question or asking another question. Since Mobility Partners is responsible for maintenance of the managed lanes as well as the general purpose lanes, wherever that trailer is, we can say wear on the road. So it is like you're not paying for wear on the lanes. You are paying for the space it's taking up.
But not in all fairness. The toll company is reimbursed differently for the maintenance they do on the other road versus the toll.
That is true. Yeah.
Other questions, comments from the feedback?
Good point there, Ted, for sure.
Did we get your questions answered? We're good?
Actually, I wanted to, first of all, I just want to say, Mayor Becker, congratulations. That just looks like a wonderful project.
Thank you.
And I think I just want to be complimentary that we are spotlighting, and highlighting some of the successes. What I'm interested in knowing, and just point me in the right direction to find this, is where would be a breakdown of how much discretionary funds have been to each of the municipalities so that we can be celebrating those kind of things. Does that get aggregated data over a year? Where would I find that? Could we get that information?
Funny that you ask. We have gotten that aggregated. Neil put all that together, and I think we're going to bring that in the April meeting when we talk about the MOU update. It was going to be included in that. Yeah.
Congratulatory and spotlight things that are awesome. All of us.
Awesome. Other thoughts, questions, other comments, even if it's not to Brett or anything? Gosh, y'all are like quiet tonight. I don't know whether dinner must have been too much, Great. Mr. Lathrop, if you want to offer anything from the board, and then we'll close out.
Very quickly. We met as a full board last week, and our fiscal house is in order. We did have a robust conversation about issuing bonds, which we do in most years, but we've got some constraints around that. And I won't bore you too much with it, but we're trying to get some relief those constraints so that we can issue bonds and it's consistent with best practices. We got more money to spend. So we're trying to do that.
Is that legislative?
Yeah.
Principle?
Because we,
Okay.
if cash is at a certain level, we can't issue bonds, but the rules around those cash levels, statutes were passed when our budget was less than half of what it is now. So if we complied with those rules for how much cash we have to have in order to issue bonds, like there'd be sirens going off because it would be so low. So that just needs to be brought into the modern era. So it's legislative. But in my Division 10 hat, I've been talking with many of you all, so y'all feel free to call me. I hate to say that, but anyway, feel free to do that. One other thing, we have the annual North Carolina Transportation Summit, which is in May this year instead of January. Last year it's been May. Hope you all will put it on your calendars and come. It's May 21. Convention Center in Greensboro. And there will be between 1,000 and 2,000 people there. Almost everybody who's involved in transportation, industry, people, engineers, contractors, laborers, financiers, local officials from across the state, planning people, transportation people, a lot of NCDOT people, national automakers. We talk about EVs. I mean, there's a lot going on. I encourage everybody. That's all.
Great. Anything else? Otherwise, can I get a motion to adjourn? I thought certainly Mr. Jacobs would be right on that. Is there a second? I guess we got a second with me. All those in favor say aye. Anybody opposed? Y'all have a great evening. Don't forget, different date next week or next month.